They said no one at Maxwell Air Force Base was above the law, but that morning someone tried to prove otherwise. It was just after dawn when the rain finally stopped. The asphalt outside the administrative wing glistened under the first pale light. You could still smell jet fuel and wet pine. Tom Bailey, 70 years old, retired Air Force mechanic now janitor, was out there with his mop cart sweeping leaves into piles that would never stay put. His back hurt, but he still whistled a tune older than most of the pilots on base. He'd cleaned hangars' dorms, even the officers' mess. But that day he was cleaning the driveway leading to the offices of Colonel Mark Densmore, head of administration and discipline. The irony of that title would hit later. Tom parked his cart near the curb, straightened the yellow sign that read, "Caution wet floor," and began pushing water toward the drain. The rain had made a mess, but he was used to messes. In the Air Force, he used to fix F-16 hydraulics with his bare hands. Now he fixed puddles. Life had its sense of humor. From the corner of his eye, headlights flared sharp, fast, and too close. A black SUV swung around the corner and screeched into the VIP slot. Tom didn't even look up. He'd seen this scene before, high rank, low patience. The door slammed and a voice barked through the drizzle. "Hey, you trying to block my lane?" Tom turned, wiping his hands on his coveralls. A man in a pressed gray uniform stepped out, tall, perfect hair, bright red tie, under his service jacket. Colonel Densmore, a man who looked like he ironed his ego every morning. "Morning, Sir," Tom said evenly. "Floor's still slick, just need another 5 minutes." The colonel squinted like the word "sir" offended him coming from an old janitor. "I don't have 5 minutes," he snapped. "You people are supposed to keep this clear." You people. Tom had heard that tone before, usually from someone who'd never been shot at or slept on the floor of a hangar during a thunderstorm. He nodded calm. "I'll move the cart, sir." But as he bent down to grab the handle, Densmore stepped closer. His polished shoes splashed through the water, spraying Tom's pant leg. Next time, he said, jabbing a finger, "Try doing your job before your shift starts." Tom straightened, eyes level. "Next time, Colonel, try walking slower when the sign says wet floor." The words slipped out before he could stop them. The colonel's smile froze. "What did you just say?" "Nothing, Sir," Tom replied, tone steady. "Just safety first." For a second, neither moved. Then, with a sudden shove, Densmore's shoulder clipped the handle of the cart. The wheels jerked, metal clanged, and Tom, off balanced knees, stiff from age, went down hard. The mop water splashed up, soaking the colonel's pristine trousers. And just like that, his face turned crimson. "You assaulted me," Densmore shouted. Tom blinked from the ground. "I what?" Within seconds, 2 military police appeared from the checkpoint nearby, hands on their belts. One of them, a young corporal named Rogers, looked uncertain. The colonel didn't. Under Article 91 of the UCMJ, Densmore barked this man's under arrest for disrespecting and assaulting an officer. Tom sat back on one knee, rain dripping from his sleeve. He didn't argue, didn't beg. Just said, "Colonel, you might want to check the camera first." Densmore smirked. "Oh, we'll check it, after I'm done filing my report." The MPs hesitated, then followed orders. Tom stood wrists out, calm as ever. The cuffs clicked shut. He glanced at Rogers and said quietly, "Don't lose that footage, son. It might just save your career." Rogers didn't answer, but he looked down at his own body cam, blinking red. As the rain started again, they led Tom across the tarmac toward the holding office. The colonel watched him go, muttering, "That'll teach you to talk back." What he didn't know was that every word, every shove, every drop of arrogance was being recorded. The ride to the security office was short, but quiet, the kind of quiet that hums louder than an engine. The MP Jeep smelled like wet leather and coffee that had been reheated too many times. Tom sat in the back, hands cuffed, watching the base slide by through the rain. He'd built half those hangars 40 years ago. Now he was being driven past them like a criminal. He almost laughed. Almost. The young MP Rogers kept glancing at him in the mirror. "You okay, sir?" he asked softly. Tom shrugged. "I've had worse cab rides." The older MP beside him chuckled once before catching himself. The Jeep rolled into the security compound, low concrete steel doors, one flickering fluorescent light. Inside, Colonel Densmore was already there, coat off sleeves, rolled pacing like a man who thought he owned gravity. When he saw Tom, his smirk came back. "Put him in holding too," he ordered. "We'll process him after my report's filed." The sergeant behind the desk hesitated. "Sir, the footage from the checkpoint." "Do your job," Sergeant Densmore snapped. Tom caught the look between them. He'd seen that look before young soldiers, realizing the man, barking orders, might just be the fool in the room. They took his fingerprints, his ID badge, even his belt. When they told him to remove his boots, he muttered, "You sure you want the smell of a real airman in here?" Rogers tried not to laugh. The sergeant coughed to hide a smile. Densmore didn't. He just glared. "Wipe that grin off your face," the colonel said. "You're done here, Bailey." Tom met his eyes steady. "Son, I've been done here since you learned to spell rank." That hit harder than a punch. Densmore turned on his heel and left. The cell was small painted military gray, the kind of color that made time move slower. Tom sat on the metal bench back straight, staring at the reflection in the glass panel. An old man in a jumpsuit, a bruise forming on his knee. He smirked at himself. Hell of a promotion. Hours passed. The hum of the air vent, the distant echo of boots in the hallway, the sound of someone's laugh carried from the break room. It all blurred into that slow military rhythm. Wait, wait, and wait some more. Then footsteps stopped outside his door. Rogers again. He looked nervous, like a kid holding a secret too heavy. "Sir," he said quietly, "I reviewed my body cam before they locked it in evidence. You didn't touch him. He hit your cart." Tom nodded. "I know." Rogers lowered his voice. "The colonel's rewriting the report. Says you charged at him." "Figures." Rogers hesitated. "What should I do?" Tom leaned forward, voice low but firm. "Just tell the truth, and make sure that footage doesn't vanish. I don't care what they threaten you with." Rogers swallowed, then nodded. "Yes, sir," Good Tom said, and dropped the "sir." "I'm retired. The mop outranks me now." The kid cracked a grin and slipped away. When the door closed again, Tom leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. He wasn't angry. Anger was for people who thought it had changed something. He'd seen too many officers like Densmore come and go, loud men with soft backbones. But every now and then, the system got a reality check. He figured this one was overdue. Morning crept in through the narrow window, orange light across gray walls. When they finally opened his door, a woman in a navy blue blazer stepped in, carrying a thick folder. "Mr. Bailey." "That's me," Tom said. "I'm Carla Whitman, counsel, appointed through the Veterans Legal Program. I heard about your situation. News travels fast. In this base, gossip outruns jets," she said, sitting across from him. "Walk me through it." He told her everything down to the shove, the puddle, the cuffs. She didn't interrupt once. When he finished, she flipped open her notes. "The colonel's pressing charges under Article 91, disrespect and assault. It's ridiculous, but we'll need proof. Kid with the camera's got it." "Rogers?" she asked. Tom raised an eyebrow. "You already know his name." "I've been doing this a while," Carla said, smirking. "Young MPs usually want to do the right thing. If that footage survives, this case collapses." Tom nodded slowly. "And if it doesn't," she closed the folder. "Then we remind the colonel that destroying military evidence falls under Article 107, and I'd love to see him try to explain that under oath." Tom chuckled softly. "I like you already." She stood. "Court hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning. Dress blue's optional." "I'll stick with gray," he said, tapping his coveralls. "Easier to hide the dirt." Carla smiled. "You'd be surprised who ends up dirty in those hearings, Mr. Bailey." When she left, Tom sat for a moment, the faintest smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. He didn't know how it would play out, but something told him that for once The mop man had the high ground. The next morning, the courtroom inside Maxwell Base was packed. Not a single empty seat in the back row. Half the audience wasn't even there for justice. They just wanted to see how bad the janitor would burn. The ceiling fans clicked lazily. The smell of coffee brass polish and tension hung in the air. Tom sat at the defense table beside Carla Whitman. She looked calm, the kind of calm that made other people nervous. Across the aisle sat Colonel Densmore, crisp uniform jaw, tight, pretending not to notice the reporters from the base paper. When the military judge entered, everyone stood. He was a broad-shouldered man with a tired face and eyes that had seen too many court-martials. He nodded once. "Be seated." The prosecutor, a young captain with too much gel in his hair, rose. "Your Honor, this case concerns an act of aggression and insubordination against a superior officer." Carla cut in. "Correction, Your Honor, an alleged act." The judge didn't smile, but his eyebrow twitched. "Noted. Proceed." The captain walked in front of the jury. The facts are simple. The accused, Thomas Bailey, refused an order to clear the walkway, became verbally aggressive, and then struck Colonel Densmore, causing injury too. "Injury," Carla said. "To what, his pants?" A few quiet laughs rippled through the gallery. Densmore's face tightened. The judge cleared his throat. "Counsel, control your sarcasm." "Understood, Your Honor. Just trying to keep the facts and the trousers straight." Tom sat quietly, hands folded, watching the captain fumble his papers. He wasn't angry. He was curious, like watching a pilot taxi with the brakes on. After an hour of dull testimony about proper procedure and respect for command, Carla finally stood. "Your Honor, the defense calls Corporal Rogers." The young MP stepped up, uniform pressed, but voice shaky. He swore and then took the stand. "Corporal, Carla said you were on duty the morning of the incident. Correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "You were wearing a body cam." "Yes, ma'am." "And did that camera record the entire exchange between my client and Colonel Densmore?" "It did." Carla turned to the judge. "Your Honor, the defense requests that footage be shown to the court." Densmore shifted in his seat. The captain whispered something to him, but the judge was already nodding. "Granted. Let's see it." The lights dimmed. The screen dropped. The footage flickered to life, gray rain, the driveway, the yellow sign. Then Densmore's voice. "Hey, you trying to block my lane?" The courtroom fell silent as they watched the colonel step forward, shove the cart, and send the old man tumbling. The splash, the words, the arrogance. When the clip ended, the only sound was the hum of the projector cooling down. The judge leaned forward. "Captain, do you wish to amend your statement of facts?" the prosecutor stammered. No, Your Honor." "Good, because I will." He turned his gaze on Densmore. "Colonel, you accuse this man of assault. Do you deny what we just saw?" Densmore swallowed. I was provoked by what Gravity Carla asked." Half the room laughed outright this time. The judge didn't stop them. He looked back at Densmore. "Colonel, I've read your service record." "Impressive. But somewhere between the ribbons and the paperwork, you forgot that leadership isn't about volume. It's about respect." He turned to Tom. "Mr. Bailey, on behalf of this court, I apologize for the way this base treated you." Then, with quiet finality, he lifted the gavel. "All charges against the defendant are dismissed, effective immediately." He slammed it down. Bang! The sound cracked through the courtroom like thunder. Densmore's chair tipped backward as he stood too fast. It hit the floor with a clang, echoing the end of his career. Carla gathered her files, calm as ever. "Guess we'll be needing a new janitor for ego cleanup," she whispered. Tom couldn't help it. He smiled. For the first time in 24 hours, his back didn't hurt. Outside the courtroom, sunlight poured through the windows. Reporters whispered. MPs traded looks. And in the middle of it all, Densmore was escorted down the hallway, red-faced and silent. As Tom passed him, the colonel hissed, "You think you won, old man?" Tom paused, looked him straight in the eye. "No, Colonel," he said. "Winning's for games. This was just cleaning up." He walked away before the man could reply. Behind him, Carla grinned. Remind me never to get on your bad side. You don't mop against the grain, Tom said. Life or floors. 2 days later, the story was everywhere on base. Not officially, of course. Official channels hated stories that didn't end with medals. But soldiers talk. Secretaries whisper. Cooks, clerks, mechanics, they all knew. The janitor stood up to the colonel, they said. And for once that line didn't end with a punchline. Tom was back on duty the next morning. Same coveralls, same mop, same slow stride. The only difference was the way people looked at him. They didn't look through him anymore. They nodded. Quiet respect, the kind that doesn't need applause. He was sweeping the hall outside the admin office when Corporal Rogers walked by, a coffee in each hand. He handed one to Tom. For the man who taught me that cameras don't lie, people do. Tom took a sip. You'll learn, kid. Cameras only help when you point them in the right direction. Rogers grinned. You ever think about retiring again? Tom looked around. From what I already outran my ego. That's enough retirement for me. They laughed. Then the PA system crackled. All personnel report to the auditorium for mandatory ethics briefing. Tom smirked. Guess they're still cleaning up. That afternoon, a letter arrived in his locker, official letterhead, thick paper. From the base commander himself. Mr. Bailey, your conduct during the recent incident reflects the core values of the United States Air Force Integrity Service and Excellence. Thank you for reminding us what those words actually mean. At the bottom, handwritten, P.S. My hallway's been spotless since you got back. Keep it that way. Tom folded the letter neatly and tucked it behind a photo of his unit from decades ago. All of them younger, smiling, covered in grease and hope. That evening he walked out of the building just as the sun dropped behind the hangars. The sky burned orange and gold, the color of endings that don't feel like endings. He paused at the edge of the lot, looking at the wet pavement catching the light. Someone had spilled a cup of coffee earlier, and it ran down in little brown streams. Tom took his mop, swiped it once, clean and perfect. Rogers called after him from the doorway. You sure you don't want a promotion, sir? Tom didn't turn around. Kid, I already got one, he said. They finally called me by my name. He pushed the cart down the empty lane wheels, creaking the mop handle, tapping softly in rhythm. The base was quiet. The flag above the main gate caught a slow gust of wind. It waved like it knew something no one else did. Because at Maxwell rank could open doors, but dignity kept them open. And sometimes justice didn't wear stripes or stars. Sometimes it carried a mop.